is open. If you ever have questions for me as your state representative, feel free to reach out, read my own email, give me a call, stop by my office if you happen to be at the Capitol. So thank you for putting this on. Appreciate your accessibility to your constituents. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Freiberg. And again, thank you to the mayor for welcoming us to Golden Valley and for joining us tonight. I want to start with just an update on the incident that happened at my last town hall. Really grateful to Minneapolis Police, our Hennepin County District Office, and the FBI, and everyone who has been working towards the indictment and the arrest. The man was arrested. He faces both county and federal charges. He had his first day of hearing about a week ago, and the judge decided to keep him in jail until he has his court date, which probably will be in about a year or so. So just wanted to give you all an update. I know people have been calling and asking, and as far as how I'm feeling, I'm doing good, and not snow or attacks will stop me from having these town halls, so thank you all. We've been working in D.C. Over the last year, trying to pass appropriations bills that help fund the government. The last one that we worked on was the appropriations bill for Department of Homeland Security, which mainly funds ICE, FEMA, and TSA. We voted against the legislation to give the department the resources it needed because we believed it was really important to put demands to hold that department accountable and make it more transparent and bring justice to the people that have been killed and harmed by the department. Right now is in the Senate, so if you have strong feelings about it, please reach out to our senators and ask them to hold strong. Currently, because the funding has lapsed, it is technically shut down. The Department of Homeland Security is technically shut down. They will have to use the reserve funding that they have in order to function in the meantime before that bill gets voted and negotiated, hopefully with real accountability intact. There's been a lot of debate about elections. We know that there's a lot of people who are scared on whether elections will happen in the midterms. We know that our Republican counterparts and the president himself have made a lot of comments about our elections not being secure. There needing to be, there being people who are not citizens in the United States voting. And in an attempt to address that, they introduced the SAFE Act. And we recently voted for, it was recently voted in the House. It is currently in the Senate. I myself voted against that bill because we believe it is an attack on our democracy and the electoral process. We know that it is going to disenfranchise millions of Americans, especially women. Americans who've changed their names, including estimated 69 million married women across the United States who will be unable to use their birth certificates alone to prove that they are citizens, but will require to submit additional paperwork in order to be able to vote. The bill also required all states to hand over their voter rolls to Kristi Noem's DHS. Absolutely not. Republicans know that they can't win this upcoming election in a fair way, and they're trying very hard to limit the people's access to the polls. We did have a rare bipartisan win recently in the House. Last week, we voted on a resolution blocking the national emergency Trump declared in order to raise tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans joined Democrats in supporting the resolution. Speaker Johnson tried to prevent it from happening. He buried language in basic procedural vote that would have stopped us from moving forward on the resolution. But we know the tide is turning. The American people understand that the Trump administration's trade policies are a disaster for the American people. And it's really important for us to have these smaller wins because it signals to the president that he's not going to be able to do whatever he wants without a check from Congress. So really proud of my colleagues for being able to stand up to him. Lastly, before we go to questions, I want to remind all of you that our office serves as your liaison to the federal government. My staff in the room, can you all raise your hands or stand and raise your hand? The whole okay. They are here to be a crucial line of advocacy for our constituents who are experiencing issues with the federal government, like irregularities, delays, and emergencies. Although we know that we are working under a difficult environment with the federal administration, our duty still remains the same. Congressional casework involving ICE is unique and narrow, but we can help for people who are looking for individuals that might have been detained by ICE if they are not in the detainee locator system within 48 hours, inquiring on urgent medical issues to ensure an individual is receiving appropriate medical treatment, ensuring an individual's attorney, loved ones are able to communicate with them. And importantly, our office cannot provide legal advice or assistance, but if there's other ways that we can help in regards to ICE and immigration enforcement, please reach out to our office. Our number is 612-333-1272. That's 612-333-1272. That is 612-333-1272. Last year, our staff were able to help 1,000 constituents with issues like Social Security, immigration, taxes, healthcare, and more. Our team was also able to return more than $4.8 million to constituents, businesses, and organizations in the district. We can't solve every problem, but we are committed to doing everything that we can to try. And now we will take questions. If you raise your hand, Ali will come to you with a mic, and as a reminder, always please don't touch the mic. We'll start here in the green.
Thank you, Congresswoman. My name is Nate Lasson, and I live in Robbinsdale. As the DHS shutdown continues, many of us in the base feel that Minority Leader Jeffrey's approach lacks the fierce urgency required to meet this administration's aggression. Given the distaste for the current wait-and-see leadership style, is there an appetite within the Progressive Caucus to challenge the current leadership hierarchy? Specifically, what is the path forward for a Democratic leadership that actually reflects the fight we're seeing in the streets of Minneapolis?
I appreciate the question. You know, I was with some seniors earlier at a senior living facility, and I was talking about, you know, just even with DHS, the challenges that we have as we think about federal employees in having that department be subject to not having funding. And we know that ICE has a slush fund. The people that are going to be impacted are communities that need FEMA assistance. The people that are going to be impacted as TSA workers who are essential workers are going to have to show up at work every single day without taking a paycheck. And so we know that, majority of federal employees, people think these people make a lot of money. Maybe the contractors do, but a lot of the actual employees live paycheck to paycheck. And so what might seem like wait and see leadership to some people, it might be one that is actually taking into account the harm that could be caused if we are not careful in picking fights that can actually be resolved without the American people being further harmed. And so we had the opportunity right after we came back from the field hearing we had in Minnesota to have a conversation about what we wanted to do with DHS funding, because we knew that was coming. I led the Congressional Progressive Caucus to take an official stand to say, unless we have them meet these 10 demands, we're not going to be able to vote for the DHS funding. And we were able to get the go-ahead and the support of Leader Jeff Reese to do that, and it became the official stand of the whole caucus, and it translated also that becoming the official stand of the Senate. And so I think there are opportunities for us to make sure our leadership understands when the fight is appropriate and when we know that the American people are with us to be able to undertake that fight. Touch the mic.
You bring me much joy, and you make me proud to be a Minnesotan and a member of this community.
Thank you. Thank you. You all make me proud to be Minnesotan, so thank you.
And my request is that you have the whole Democratic electorate to boycott this State of the Union. I don't think any Democrat should show up and be assaulted by all the lies and all the BS that's going to come out. And you would take away the narrative of Don, because the news will be focused on no Democrats there for his BS. So if you can stand in unison and show people that you've had enough as a Democratic Party, I think the statement would resonate a great deal. But if half of you show up and half of you don't, I don't see a statement being made. I think everybody should boycott it, because it's all going to be, oh, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, I've done all this, and I'm everything that God has given us. The USA, we're so hot, we're so hot, we're so hot. It's time to just take the narrative away and give it to the Democrats by saying, fuck you, Don.
It's also true that the people who are not hot are the ones who will tell you they're hot, so that says something. If you know you're hot, you don't tell people you're hot. It is something that it's always debated in our caucus. There are people like myself who believe it is our house, and we shouldn't be forced to not go to our house and conduct the business we are elected to conduct because, this delusional man is coming to tell his lies. And I also think it is an opportunity to highlight the damage that he's caused, not just to Americans, but to America in general, by inviting guests who have suffered under his administration. So I'm taking, 3 American citizens who've been physically assaulted and jailed and detained by ICE as my guests. We're going to be doing, work around the day to try to make sure people understand just what the severity of what happened to Minnesotans looks like. Because what I hear from my colleagues, even the ones that came here, they're like, I didn't think it was this bad. So I do think it is important, and that's what the Minnesota Dem delegation is doing. We're all attending and we're all taking guests that have been harmed by ICE. But I do understand your sentiment. The other piece that people don't know is that, which I found out my first year because I was lobbying for all of us to walk out, to, to not go, to do something, is that they have people line up to fill the seats. And so it is not going to be a visual that the American people get to see, because whoever is leading the Congress, the speaker, prepares for that, and every seat would be filled.
Yeah, but everybody will know there was not one Democrat in participation, because the people that are going to be brought there is going to fall on deaf ears to the whole Republican Party. I mean, the statement was,
I think we are reclaiming the narrative.
pay for people to go sit in the seats, just like we're paid protesters, I mean, you got to take the, that would take the narrative away from the Republicans and Donnie, the dear leader. That's just my personal opinion, and it's time to make a stand against this regime.
Ali, the green one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ali, انت.
Hello. You're my favorite congressperson ever. I told you that before. I'll be out the doors with you this summer. Don't respond to that because it's not a campaign event. I know, but that's true, right? No more gun violence. No more deaths. I feel empty inside. I'm used.
Ali, can you move the mic a little way because it's echoing and I can't understand what it is.
No more gun violence. I'm used to lobbying elected officials in state capitals for gun violence prevention that happens outside. I'm not used to going to a Capitol building to lobby against gun violence.
I mean, thank you so much. And it is an important issue. Mike and I actually were reminiscing that 24-hour sit-in that we did in the Capitol when I was there, because our two youngest kids were with us, and we were just sharing photos of that day. And it is an important issue. It's an important issue to I would say most Democrats. We've been talking about it when we were in charge in the House. We passed legislation. Obviously, we didn't have the numbers in the Senate, and it was unfortunate that didn't go into law. Minnesota has really stepped up in passing legislation. I know they still have and are committed to doing more work. But yes, nobody should become desensitized to the idea that it's acceptable to have it be part of everyday life in a country like the United States, where people are being gunned down every day. It was just yesterday, I think, that there was a shooting in Rhode Island at the hockey ring, and it's severely unfortunate. And those are my colleagues who had the shooting at Brown. There's only 2 reps for Rhode Island, and that's not even that far ago. And so it is top of mind. And if someday we are fortunate enough to have the House, the Senate, and the presidency, that I will do everything in my power to make sure we get that done. Or my daughter will disown me, so I don't know if some of you know, but my daughter led the school walkout in 2017 for the 20th Columbine anniversary. There's one right there, the black over there, and then we'll come back. I promise you, I can see when your hand goes up, so I'm not.
Hi, my name is Kat. I'm a constituent of yours from Minneapolis. I have a 2-part question for you. Obviously, what's been going on in Minnesota has been completely unacceptable. We've had people murdered on our streets. We've had people harmed in every possible way, the least of it emotionally, it feels like, even though that's been really terrible too. And it feels like sometimes the rest of the country, including Democrats in the House and the Senate, are not listening to how dire this situation is. I'm at a loss for how many more people need to die or be physically maimed or other things, horrible things to happen in our community and in other communities around the country before Congress acts. Part of why we're in this problem in the first place is because of the funding bill last year that did give ICE all of this funding, which was congressional, and also because Congress has failed to pass comprehensive immigration reform leading up until this point. So my question for you is two parts. One, what is happening immediately, like over the next, let's say, month, to fix this problem? Like, what is going on? What are you doing? What are the big things you're thinking about to address this issue? And two, longer term, it feels a little bit like some of the Democrats in Congress think that progressives or liberal-leaning people are just going to default support them no matter what they do. And that has led to some complacency, I think, in the party. What are you doing to address that and thinking more long-term going forward?
No, I mean, I think you're right. As I said earlier, when we had about 27 of my colleagues come into Minnesota, we hosted a dinner for them and we invited community members to come in and give, a 3-minute update on what they're seeing. And almost all of them remarked on the fact that they didn't think things were that bad. And then when we did the field hearing, that was almost unanimous in saying, you could, like in real life, see if you watch the live stream of that, their mouths dropping, right, at the incidents that were being described by the witnesses. And, when we had the young woman who was pulled out of her car that had the disability, that was going to her doctor's appointment, who's going to be my State of the Union guest. Yeah, thank you. But like when she testified, it was the same thing. People were saying, people didn't understand, right? And I try every day to try to explain to my colleagues that there is not going to be a 2-minute, interview clip or a 5-minute interview clip where it can be captured, the level of devastation we have experienced. There's the physical harm. There is there's the terror. I was telling them the other day, you have men in paramilitary fatigue who are masked, who are carrying military-style weapons. And there is 10, 15 of them walking down your block. And if you are a kid, if you are an adult, if you are someone, who's not me, who lived through a war, and, that is something that you've seen before, it is very traumatizing, right? I was last in a combat zone when I was 8, and to this day, like, the sight of that, it still triggers me. And a lot of our colleagues who have military background have been just expressing, right, how different it is even for them when they were in the battlefield, the way that they would carry themselves when they walked in neighborhoods, because they wanted the people not to be scared of them. And that the way that ICE is walking in our neighborhoods is actually like what they were told not to do. And so I think slowly since that hearing, a lot more people are, I think, fully waking up to the reality of what Minnesotans have been living with, which is, why without, I think, much pushback, we were able to get an official position from the Progressive Caucus to say we're not going to vote for DHS funding. That's why without like a big public debate, all the Democrats coalesced, whether they're in the Senate or in the House. And so I do think that a lot of that work has been done because those of us who represent Minnesota have been having these conversations in our caucus rooms, at Crescendo, at every opportunity that we get with our colleagues, trying to impress on them So in the short term, we have the 10 demands. One, we want ICE out of our city. I mean, our state. We want the masks to come off. We want the military-grade weapons to go away. We want a clear identification of which agency they are with. We want the plates to stop switching in the cars. We want the terror to end. And so that's in the immediate what we are fighting for, to try to just at least get some accountability. We're also fighting to make sure that there is independent investigation to the assassination of two of our neighbors, right? We also want an investigation to the shooting of the Venezuelan men in North Minneapolis, where the agents were clearly found to have lied, that he was a threat to them. And so those are some of the things that we're doing. And obviously, you know, I was asked earlier, I do believe Democrats understand that there is a moment to be met, and if they do not, they are not winning re-election. I don't think that that's a secret to a lot of my colleagues. Almost every, you know, person who hasn't been vocal has a primary challenger. A lot of the people who have been there, you know, way too long and have lost touch with their constituents have primary challengers. So people are feeling the heat, and it is important for us to keep that heat on. Don't touch the mic.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm a little nervous, but I have a comment and a question pertaining to like the State of the Union. I don't think Democrats should boycott it because I don't know if this is the right guy's name. I'm not. This is my first time getting into politics. But Hakeem Jeffries, I think it is. He said we cannot allow Trump to kick Democrats out of their own house because wherever the State of the Union is the house of the American people. So we as Democrats have to be there because that's our house too. And my question is, before you took questions, you said that we couldn't solve every problem. I just want to know what specifically those problems are that you're talking about, because obviously there's a lot of problems going on right now.
No, that's fair. No, I was saying for casework, if you have, you know, sometimes people have problems with the IRS for their tax return. There are cases that are solvable, and there's some that are not. Sometimes we have veterans that are not getting their benefits. There are some cases that we can solve for them, some that we are not. There are sometimes people who have problem with the Social Security office. Some cases we can, sometimes some of those cases are not solvable. So that's what I meant in regards to casework and being your liaison to be able to access those federal agencies. We'll do there, Ali.
Right. Thank you. First of all, Congresswoman Omar, thank you for being here. It's an honor to see you in person and listen to you. Awesome. I like the comment about perception of, say, complacency a little bit among Congress and the Senate, Democrats, when so much is going on, so many problems everywhere. It seems like a lot of what we've been talking about are distractions. And in the meantime, we've got this armada of battleships and 2 aircraft carriers that are gathering in the Persian Gulf right now, and Trump is talking about possibly attacking Iran by Saturday. You know, I mean, it just seems like the Democrats are not doing enough or loud enough talking about these kinds of horrible things that can happen. Not to mention blowing up these ships that are, coming out of Venezuela and wherever else. They just killed 11 more people a couple days ago. are you being loud enough and talking about how horrible these things are and what they're doing for our reputation?
I mean, I would say that the right has more of a megaphone than we do on the left. And so I think maybe that is why there isn't a breakthrough. And obviously our president says all kinds of crazy stuff, and that dominates the news cycle. But we've attempted to pass legislation to hold him accountable for Venezuela, to make sure that he doesn't go war with them, with Cuba, with Greenland. We have resolutions on Iran, war powers resolutions on Iran. So these are, issues that we are screaming about in a way. And, I'm reminded when I have these town halls that people are not getting them in the way that we had hoped. And I think that might be just a communications breakthrough when it comes to just how much of a more well organized. I can sneeze and there'll be 50, 100 articles that are written by all of these, MAGA pundits to characterize what kind of sneezing it was. And like Democrats can pass legislation to stop the tariffs on Canada, and it barely breaks through on anything. So that's the significance in the gap is something that we've all been talking about, and how to close that. And one way that you all can help is to utilize our social media platforms and help amplify what we are trying to communicate there, so that more people are able to see and have eyeballs on it.
Representative, is that on? Oh, yeah, it's on. Okay, thanks. Representative Omar, thank you very much. We have so many problems, but I just want to confine my question to one, and that is, what is that day going to look like when we wake up in the morning and we realize that Vladimir Putin was right? He will have prevailed in Ukraine. He will move across Europe. And more importantly, every other dictator, wannabe, political entity that wants to take over their neighbor will say, hey, that worked great for him. We're going to do the same. And that's going to happen across the board. Where do you see this, the United States' position on Ukraine at this point?
I don't think, I think it is really important that we do whatever it takes to help Ukraine win this war, and remain and maintain their sovereignty. I do believe, and I agree, that it will send the wrong message. And it could somehow get us into World War III if, we had massive invasion of NATO countries. And so it's been my my vote record has been to support any sort of way that can be helpful to the brave men and women of Ukraine who have thus far really shown an incredible bravery and courage as they defend their homeland. Mike?
Hi, thank you. So, just as I was listening to everybody's questions, I'm sort of overwhelmed as a constituent, as a layperson, with like the number of battlefields that exist right now. We're talking about the SAVE Act, ICE, obviously the major concern here, Venezuela, Iran, Greenland, the Epstein files, and the corresponding concerns with the DOJ. As a layperson, it feels less like death by 1,000 cuts and more just like 1,000 sort of fatal blows. And so I'm curious about how you're seeing both yourself and other congressional Democrats in leadership focusing and prioritizing these issues, and also what do you think or anticipate might fall between the cracks?
That's a really good question. So when Trump won, before he was sworn in, we formed a task force of litigation and response. There are about 120, I think, of them members that are on there. Many others also participate and help out. And that was formed in anticipation of Project 2025 being implemented. And so our view on this is that everything he's trying to, preventing him breaking anything is a priority. And so there isn't really anything that we think will fall through the cracks. We are responding to everything and anything. And we are making sure that the coalition of civil rights and civil liberty organizations and lawyers that we cultivated, that network has the support that they need from ourselves and our offices. And we have a hand in almost every litigation to try to stop every single executive order that he's introduced. We have a hand in the litigation of the unlawful ways in which his cabinet is carrying out policy in an illegal way. You see us coordinating efforts to visit detention centers. We are doing court watches so that people are not picked up as they are doing the right thing of adjusting their statuses and showing up for their interviews. So there's a group that helps coordinate that and make sure people are available, members are available, because we notice that people are less likely to get picked up when we are present in court. We have, especially in places where there's high activity, like New York and New York and LA. We have a coordinated effort with the 22 Democratic AGs and the lawsuits that they are bringing. They regularly come in, especially our AG, Keith Ellison. They come in and give us updates on regular basis, a few times a month. And so that effort of trying to make sure that we're not stepping all over ourselves, but that we are strategic in understanding that we all have different expertise, we all have different needs in our districts or our neighboring districts, and that we all represent constituencies that are vulnerable in different ways. I've never seen the Democratic caucus work with each other in the way that I'm seeing, and it is actually that if we carry this unity, I know we'll have new people, but if we carry this sort of collaborative unity that we have, I think we have an incredible chance to govern in a way that will make the American people proud once they put us back in charge.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Laura. I'm from New Hope, and not to add to another battlefield, because I agree that it is stressful how many there are, but one that is near and dear to my heart is the Boundary Waters Canoe area, and we've got HJ 140, which I believe you said no to on that one. That is going on to the Senate, and if that does end up passing, hopefully it won't, what would you do to protect Minnesota's natural resource and the nation's natural resources so that we have sustainability and longevity for future generations?
I've been very vocal on that, and I know it passed the House. I think we lost one Democrat. I worked really hard for the ones who voted for it before to not take that vote. Just explaining to them just how precious it is to us. And I know that our senators are working incredibly hard in the Senate. So I don't see a path in which it passes the Senate right now. We'll go. Hat, sorry. Trying to think how you say that in Somali. The hat of Kofi the cowboy.
I'm Ron Adams from St. Louis Park, and thank you for being here tonight. They started bombing what seemed to be fishing boats off of Venezuela in the Pacific. They say they can't investigate them, stop them, and investigate them because the Coast Guard doesn't have fast enough boats. And I'm thinking, doesn't the Coast Guard have a budget?
They normally do, and that is, I don't think that excuse holds up in court. And there will be an investigation once we have a shift on who's in charge. And I remind my colleagues every single day, you can, close your eyes to the unconstitutional ways this president is behaving, but you are risking the freedoms of the people who signed up to take orders from this man by not saying these things should not happen. And I know that the day of accountability would come, and there will be proper investigations. But to go back to the money, Coast Guard is funded under DHS. So at the moment, they don't have money because it's part of the government that shut down. We'll come back to you back there.
Hi, my name's Avery O'Leary, and I just have a question about towering to get ICE out of America because it's getting too far. I'm just saying how you guys are going to end it.
It breaks my heart that as someone so young, you have to think about that. What I will say is that there is an easier conversation happening today than 6-7 years ago when I got to Congress about what we need to do with ICE, which is to abolish it. And there is a lot of conversation about what the dismantlement of the Department of Homeland Security should look like. Because right now, the agencies that are put together do not have accountability in the way that that formation exists. And it's very important for us, if we're not going to go back to pre-2002, in looking at how these agencies used to operate without this level of brutality that we are seeing, then we need to figure out a different system that can work for people where little children are not afraid of federal agents, trying to carry out the duties they were designated to carry out, but instead end up terrorizing whole communities. So thank you.
So in light of the police and sheriff's inability or unwillingness to help us, I'm wondering if you were interested in pulling something from the past, the Minnesota State Guard, to act as rapid response, to create a foundation of defense for us. Because I'm looking at Schumer, Jeffries, and they can't or won't. But that might be a way to legitimize all the hard work I see around myself every day when I do rapid response.
check in with the Minnesota legislators on this.
Yeah, the National Guard is a state agency, so it. Sure, it's a little before my time, but we do have a National Guard right now. The governor has readied them. I know he did that a while ago, and the thinking was by doing that, he makes it so that the president cannot take advantage of Minnesota's National Guard. I don't, whether or not that's the best system, if we should look at like recreating some sort of a state guard.
Our citizenry, so that when we do something, it's not just me by myself disconnected on a signal chat with 1,000 other people. It has the backing of the state, and it has legitimacy to it. Like right now, why is it that we are organizing all of the rapid response groups without any assistance from the government at all? It's my friend, who I climb with weekly, who spends 2 hours every night after work being dispatched. Why is that his job? Why don't we have backing from our representatives and from our state?
No. Yeah, we should. I'm on those rapid responses chats, signal chats as well. I've been to Whipple to retrieve a constituent who's been letting go. I mean, the people I've seen there, the Haven Watch people at Whipple who welcome back people who are getting released there are just doing incredible work. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but those, if there's such a thing as a saint, those people are saints who are doing that sort of work. And just what I've seen from my neighbors, from people I don't even know, people with silly, names like Seinfeld references on signal chats and Simpsons references has just been incredible. If there is some way to, legitimize them through the government, I'm certainly open to looking how we could do that. But it shouldn't be up to ordinary citizens to do this kind of work. But at the same time, we have seen just incredible things from our neighbors, and anything we can do to support that work, I fully support.
I mean, in one place, there is a problem in that when you have local and state law enforcement and the federal law enforcement, what I know that our governor and many mayors and police chiefs have been thinking about, because we've been part of these conversations, is that how do you avoid a clash between them? And even when the National Guard was sent to Whipple to just make sure things didn't get out of hand, they ended up working with the federal law enforcement in detaining people. And then you have people that are upset about that because, again, their mission is aligned, right? And so, my problem in wanting, because there hasn't been an incident in which you have local law enforcement, maybe one in Minnesota, where you have local law enforcement or state show up, where they haven't then contributed to the harming like the people who are out there, very upset about what's happening to their neighbors and what's happening to their country. There's that one case where the police chief knew the husband of an observer, and when she was taken, her husband was able to call, and that police chief was able to make sure when they came, before they took her to Whipple, when they came to the police station to ask if he can take her home. And so it's challenging because they play on the same team. So that's been the bigger problem.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Don't touch the mic.
Don't touch the mic.
Hi, Ilhan. I have this two-part question, but I'm going to start off real quick on this. So I'm just a little bit worried about a bunch of people who've been breaking the law knowingly, and they know if they lose, the power in Congress or in the Senate, then what, like what type of extremes will they go to hold on to that power? So I'm just a little bit, I just want to put that in your mind, like what is the plan for that escalation? You don't have to answer that today. But my other question is clearly somebody who wrote the Constitution forgot about the consequences for the president that breaks the law. And so, and if we can't give consequences to this man, which I don't believe we can't do that for presidents, we need to move forward with some sort of new plan. If presidents break the law like this, there needs to be consequences. But if we can't give consequences, let's just say we can't do it for the president, there needs to be a law somehow where consequences are for the people who are in Congress who allow it because they are a part of the crime. So if we can't give consequences to the president, then we need to hold something over the heads of people who willingly go along with crime like that so that they'll think twice before they vote and accept all this. That's all. I'm hoping we can come up with a new constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I always say our founding fathers could not have fathomed, right, or didn't account for a lawless man like Trump being president of the United States and having no regard for the Constitution and the rule of law in this country, with taking his oath as a suggestion, which I think he does. I mean, there are consequences. There's impeachment is a consequence. But then we will end up with JD fans, so I don't know about how I feel about that. He is a 34-time convicted felon. And so I don't think that he is without consequence. It's just the power balance at the moment that makes it that he is avoiding those consequences. But I do believe that, it might take a long time for people to achieve justice, but justice will come. And so, we'll see. We'll take one more right there. The green.
So here
Ali has been fasting today, so please don't hold it against him.
So last I checked, there's about 2,000 Minnesotans who die from the opioid crisis currently. I know Trump is justifying a lot of his power grabs in immigration and elsewhere off of the fentanyl issue. With the progressive liberal solution being harm reduction, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that subject and, what we could do as progressives to solve this issue.
I mean, the way Trump is going about it is to say, you attacked me today, and then the gentleman in green has proximity to you, so I'm just going to go punch him in the face. Because Venezuela is not where fentanyl comes from, and it certainly is not trafficked through there. There are a lot more countries that we could be engaging with and have a conversation with, say, Mexico, if that was the real concern. And for us, it's not just harm reduction, because yes, once it's here, we want to make sure that people have the support and the care that they need, one, to not overdose so that they remain a part of our community, but two, that we do everything that we can to create the programs that make sure that they're going to be safe. We also had, under the Biden administration, our Department of Justice was working really hard to bring narco charges against gangs and others, RICO charges against narco traffickers and gang members. All of that work is not being done at the moment. And so there is a path to getting to public safety. There is a path to dealing with drugs. But we know that the war on drugs is a failed one, because not only has it not stopped drugs from being trafficked, it has increased drugs from being trafficked, and it has caused the communities that we have gone after the most pain, not only because they're exposed to the drugs, but the penalties are incredible. And then it is also responsible partially for mass migration, because those countries are made unsafe throughout our enforcement. And so I'm of the mind that, and instead of keeping the problem going so that we can use it as a talking point, like, we can actually sit down and find real solutions that, you know, progressives like myself talk about, and people say that's silly. But there are solutions out there if we were not, you know, doing what we are doing because, you know, corporations are benefiting from it and they pay the politicians to continue to run. If it wasn't the military-industrial complex that was benefiting from it, and they have, you know, contractors that make this stuff that are funding these politicians. I once had a conversation with some, you know, really decent Republican who's very anti-war, very anti-intervention, and I said to him, why do you keep voting for these things that just feed the beast? And he said, well, they feed the beast in my district, and so that is, you know, what keeps my base happy. And so I'm just going to continue to vote for these things. And so we do have representation in the House of Representatives and in the Senate of people who know what the right thing is, who have moral clarity on what the right thing is. But they are too much of a coward to stand up to the people that are funding their campaigns to say, I'm not going to allow you to traffic these drugs. I'm not going to allow you to traffic these weapons that both kill people in Mexico and other Central American countries and kill my constituents and the American people because I need a $7,000 check. Like, that is not worth your soul. And so that is what we have. Majority of the people that are there, they're not thinking about making decisions that are bold and actually effective for the American people and the global South. They are making decisions to keep themselves elected and have adjacency to power. And we are never going to have, you know, a House of Representatives that actually truly represents the people. So thank you so much for asking that. And thank you all again for joining us for this month's town hall. I will see you next month.